Hi, I'm Jill Rappaport. We're back with Flix on VH1. Next up is The Crow, which will forever be known as the movie that cost Brandon Lee his life. You may remember that last year Lee was accidentally shot and killed on the set. Now, to make matters even more bizarre, The Crow is based on the comic book about a musician who comes back from the dead to avenge his killers.
What appealed to me about the thing is this very evocative mood that is created by the comic book, and that's what I wanted to recreate.
I don't really think The Crow fits in with that typical comic genre thing like Batman, where it's a fantasy world or a fantasy setting, because The Crow is definitely set in reality. It's very grim and gritty, and it definitely has that urban gothic decadence to it.
It creates its own universe. If you can enter into a world and be totally immersed in it and believe in it, and escape from the world, the everyday world, then a movie can really be working.
It almost has, like, that rock video aesthetic to it, with really quick cuts. It's just like an adrenaline rush, the music pushing these images to the limit. To be perfectly honest, when they told me Brandon Lee had been cast, I had only seen Showdown Little Tokyo. And I thought, oh my God, it's going to be a kung fu movie, and it's going to go straight to video, and that's going to be the end of it. And then I met Brandon, and he was just so into the character. I mean, he would sit there and quote me lines from the book, and he totally understood the character and what it was about.
I gave this to Shelley once. I think she'd like you to have it.
He was very, very nice, very kind to everybody, very sweet and polite, just all around nice. There was, only one thing that I didn't like about him, that he didn't like dogs. So.
I knew Brandon for 5 years before we worked together, and a lot of what made him very special, a lot of the sense of humor, the laughter, the really special qualities comes through in the film.
People wonder how we could finish the film. I think you can only ask how worse a tragedy would have been if we'd never had been able to see what Brandon Lee could be.
Now, some of the proceeds from The Crow will be donated to charity in Brandon Lee's name.
Misfired and left actor Brandon Lee dead on the set of his film, The Crow. The movie's gone on to become #2 at the box office this past week, and tonight you're going to see how Hollywood's wizards finished the film without the star. It's a Dateline state of the art. The dilemma facing the makers of The Crow was voiced prophetically by Brandon Lee himself in an interview given during the film's production.
You tell me how somebody who comes back from the dead is going to behave.
Finishing a film after the death of its star is not new to Hollywood. In Plan 9 from Outer Space, arguably the worst movie ever made, Bela Lugosi died before the film's completion. So the director's dentist was hired to stand in with a cape used to mask his face. Unfortunately, this tall, lanky dentist bared little resemblance to the much shorter Lugosi. A similar but more subtle approach was used to finish Saratoga when Jean Harlow died. Here, a floppy hat replaces the cape.
Throw them out. All of them?
The makers of The Crow went to DreamQuest Images, looking for more sophisticated and more realistic movie magic.
The basic questions were either cut Brandon out of the film and put him into other scenes for them, or could we literally take his face or likeness and put it on another actor? And of course, we told them that for time and money, that could be done.
First, the filmmakers needed to get Brandon into his apartment building, a scene not shot prior to the accident.
We were supplied with some rainy alleyway footage that they felt had him coming into or towards camera in the proper motion.
Using computers, they traced the image of Brandon in the alley and removed him frame by frame. Then they pasted these cutouts onto the film shot in the building's doorway. But notice, Brandon's wet and the doorway's dry.
They had to take a background of the doorway to his apartment and digitally add raindrops.
It took 350 hours to create this illusion, and the result was a pivotal scene that was never really filmed.
We've taken Brandon and not altered what he's done, but we've altered where he's done it.
The final trick involved placing Brandon's head on another actor's body. First, the stand-in was shot on an elaborate set. Brandon's head was pulled from another scene in the movie, which required removing his hand. Next, Brandon's head was sized to match the other actor's body. And finally, a bloodless transplant was performed.
If we did our job right, we've helped the director tell his story, and the audience doesn't know we were involved.
And finally tonight, crop dusting pilot Kevin...
The bad guy. The film the critics are calling dazzling and fiercely hypnotic. Bye-bye, Birdie. Brandon Lee is sensational. A triumph. Brandon Lee.
I love you.
The Crow. Rated R. Now playing at theaters everywhere.
Our next album, it's called Big Empty.